of a fraud that is being played out. In order to put to rest any such perception, this SIR was required, and because Bihar is the first state that is going to polls since Maharashtra, since Haryana, Bihar became the sample case. That's the first thing that they're going to tell the Supreme Court. Second, they're going to say that this is mandated by the Constitution, and what we are doing is exactly what constitutional mandate says. Check whether somebody is an Indian citizen and check whether that person is 18 years of age or not. Of course, all the other questions that are being raised, that 2.8 crore or more than 2.5 crore voters will be disenfranchised. EC is putting out data to suggest that this is ill-founded.
Right. Arunima, thank you for your inputs. Going straight across to the former CEC, Om Prakash Rawat ji, who's joining us. Om Prakash Rawat ji, namaste, Jai Hind, thank you for your time. My first question, could you please explain to our viewers this entire process of Special Intensive Revision or SIR? When is it undertaken? And the fact that parties have now approached the Honorable Supreme Court regarding the same.
I think Supreme Court will decide on merits. What I want to tell is that it is mandated for Election Commission to hold either summary revision or intensive revision before every election, so that electoral roll comes in line for that election. Since the Bihar elections will be held in November, so electoral roll must have all the names who qualify to be voter on 1st of October 2025. And therefore, a revision was necessitated. Earlier, it was only one date, 1st January of every year. If in that year elections are being held, revision will be required only if it is not revised on 1st January. Otherwise, no revision will be required. But now these dates have changed to 4. 1st January, 1st April, 1st July and 1st October. And therefore revision was necessitated because of this. So Election Commission was well within the mandated role to announce this. Only thing is that instead of summary revision, they wanted intensive revision this time. And political parties are objecting to limited time of 3 months before elections and the possibility of many people getting disenfranchised. But the way Election Commission is doing it, it appears that these accusations are not really well founded. They have given almost the same time, which is given in intensive revision before 2002, 2003. So I think that it is in order, and whatever steps they have taken will ensure that draft roll will contain all the names who submit their forms, and that would satisfy the people.
But O.P. Rawat ji, there are accusations being made against the Election Commission that this exercise is intended to remove certain voters such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, Dalits, Muslims who are likely to vote for the opposition. Are these accusations fair?
I don't think, because all these people, if they are aged, their name would be on 2003 electoral roll. 65% voter are in that roll, and they don't have to submit any document, nothing. Their case will be decided immediately, and they will be in the roll. Only remaining 35% votes. Now these percentages include everyone. These are not selective. So all sections of society are included. Remaining 35% votes, for them, Election Commission has opened the window that you may submit these one of these documents now, and if you don't have, you just sign the form and submit. You can submit these papers, these documents, either by the time this draft roll is published, or even after that. When claims and objections are being decided during the month of August. Even then, if you submit, electoral registration officer will take cognizance of these papers and will ensure that your names figure there. Even after that, if suppose somebody's name is struck off, despite the fact that he was earlier in the electoral roll, he voted for an election, say in 2019 or 2014, then he will have an option of appeal. So there are too many safeguards.
Yeah, there are safeguards, but is there enough time to actually implement or avail of those safeguards? Many are worried about nearly 2 crore voters being struck off this entire list. How many of these individuals will have sufficient time to address this issue? What are your thoughts on this? Is it possible that nearly 2 crore voters could be struck off the list, Mr. Rawat?
That is totally baseless, that 2 crore voter will be struck off. How can they be struck off? I told you that 5 crore voters are already in, because they are in 2003 voter list. Now remaining 2.79 or 2.97, whatever it is, they have to provide one of these documents, either birth certificate or land ownership document or some service document or something, to prove that they have been living here, they are citizens here, and that's it. If suppose they don't get this, there are other ways that they can prove that their parents were living here, their names were in 2003 voter list, and their connection to their parents is this, that they were born to only these parents. So even that will be working. So there are so many options, so many ways to prove that they are citizen and they have been living here. Only problem will be with those people who are, say, 45 years of age, never registered, whose parents are never registered. They will have problem, but because they have already not registered since age is, why crib now?
No, but Mr. Rawat, my next question is two-part. One, could there be illegal immigrants, illegals also, who could have made their way into the voter list by acquiring Aadhaar cards, ration cards, etc.? The other part is it's assembly elections. So the constituency margins, 2,000-3,000 votes here and there of the voter list could be the decisive favor between a victor or a vanquished. Now, are these concerns misplaced or genuine?
Yeah, these apprehensions I can't address because these are political. And people who have illegally migrated to India, if they have some document to prove their citizenship here, they will be in. But if they have no document, because Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. So that's that. If they can prove that they are citizen, they were born here, they had land here, they have other documents, they can prove and they will be in. Otherwise, they will not be in.
But are you confident the EC's endeavor, the SIR, will stand the test of legal scrutiny? Matters up in court?
That Supreme Court will take a call on this, because all facts must be before Supreme Court, and Honorable Supreme Court will do the hearing, I think, on Thursday, and then they'll take a call, and we all have to obey or comply with the Honorable Supreme Court's order.
Everyone will have to comply, or will they continue to crib? Mr. O.P. Rawat, thank you for your time. Let's take this straight into the debate. Shazia Almi, National Spokesperson of the BJP with us. Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, commentator, and also scientist with us, a self-professed Darwinian atheist, if I may say. Good to have you here. Akashdeep Muni, political analyst, also with us. My namaste to everybody. Shazia Almi, क्या कर रहे हैं आप? चुनाव जीतने के लिए आप वोटर लिस्ट ही हटा देंगे? The Election Commission is working with the BJP. 9 opposition parties are up at arms already.
देखिए, सबसे बड़ा सवाल यहाँ पे ये है, आदाब आप सबको नमस्कार, कि कितनी बार वही कहानी घिसी पिटा राग जो है आप सुनाएंगे और लोगों को गुमराह करेंगे अपनी नाकामियों को छुपाने के लिए. Now clearly this whole narrative is being bandied around only to deflect and seek and be some kind of an alibi for the future defeat that RJD awaits. Now why malign the EC again and again? Now it's been made very clear. You've had a detailed conversation with the officer there who told you exactly how this process works. It's routine, it's transparent, it's a statutory process and an institution. Now why do you want to muddy the waters every time? So, and you look at 8 crore voters, 243 assembly constituencies, you look at the electoral polls being revised, you look at deletions, of deceased people who have migrated and have their voter cards elsewhere, and you look at various proofs. Why on earth, with such a narrative, do the rounds already, except to give the impression and have some kind of an alibi beforehand? Because RJD can smell its defeat. I mean, why would you want to do it? And to say that the poorest and the certain castes will be left out of it. out of it. I mean, why would anybody, including RJD, want to not just malign or tarnish the reputation of a statutory body is one, but also insult the intelligence of our voters. And I think that doesn't go very well. If you look at our electoral generally, if you look at our voters, our brothers and sisters in Bihar, they're very well aware and politically conscious of their rights. And to say and to have this absolutely fake, illogical narrative only to cover up your own flaws, I think it's very unfair. It's as a political strategy and also for the voter. So I have a huge problem with that, you know, and I think they should desist from it because enough is enough. And I think Election Commission has made it very clear. There's so many remedies if you look at it. If you look at legal remedies, if you see how EC works, if you see how the processes are, if you see how the standard intensive revision happens, and why it's necessary to do so. It's very much in place and routine and transparent. So why would all this rubbish be raked up every time?
See,
and why on earth
it
would
certainly
we waste national time and energy
but it certainly is not
on a
rubbish.
lie that is made up.
But if there are nine political parties and they're all coming together and they've knocked the doors of the honorable courts and the courts have now made time and made it an exception and they're going to hear it and urgently and the matters listed for the 10th of July, then clearly there is more to it than meets the eye, or there may be some grounds. Akashdeep Mani, are there grounds for genuine concerns among the opposition? Because one word that we understand is that everybody went to the EC directly, indirectly when they met with these parties ahead of this. They said something's wrong with the voter list. Everybody had something's wrong with the voter list. Voter list is not accurate. Voter list is not updated. So when everybody gives this feedback, they said, all right, let's go into a full special intensive revision of this voter list. So the EC has done it based on feedback from the parties. Now all parties are saying, "Arey, how can you do this? Mere voter chale jayenge."
Now, Anandji, special intensive revision can violate the constitution and democratic rights of Biharis, not Baharis. Let me prove my point. For instance, Article 14, right to equality. In 2023, during voter list revisions in Bihar, Simanchal region, which is Muslim dominated, as per reports, mass deletion without proper notice or verification happened. This creates suspicion of deliberate disenfranchisement. Article 21, right to life and liberty. In 2020, Bihar assembly elections in Bihar, several voters in Patna and Gaya complained their names were missing despite voting in previous elections and having voter IDs cards. Article 326, right to vote during the 2022 special summary revision in Bihar. NGOs reported that many landless Dalit and migrant laborers were asked to provide residential proof they could not access, leading to mass deletions from rolls. Now, let me come to 2025. Voter list revision carries the risk of willful exclusion of voters using state machinery. Why? Because lakhs of union and state government officials will now control and dictate who has their correct documents and who does not. Now, this carries a huge risk of willful exclusion of voters using the power of state machinery. Similar revisions happened in 2003 when it took 2 years to complete. Now elections are
there you go crying again.
November.
No, let him say, speak.
Before the notification process, 2 lines more. Notification process begins. That means the Election Commission has made a new list. Or has to make
I would like to correct you, Akashji, I think
let him complete and then I'll give you time to speak.
Maybe you've actually not well informed. But Section 21 of the Representation of People's Act deals with the preparation of electoral rolls. And
Shahjaji, one second. Let him complete and then you please come.
I would this is just a fact check. Yeah, sure. Thank you.
We should stop.
Okay. No, okay.
Now you have interrupted me, but I hope you know that 70.
This is a small fact check. It'll take 10 seconds.
Okay, just allow Shahzia Almi an intervention and then make a point.
10 seconds. Akashji, you were not entirely correct. And I would just like to update your knowledge on this. So whether Section 21 of the Representation of People's Act, which I'm sure you're aware of, it does deal with the preparation and revision of electoral rolls. And it authorizes the EC to carry out a special revision at any time for reasons to be recorded. Considering so many parties have gone, it's only fair that Election Commission do as it must. And it has noted there have been large-scale additions and deletions over the last 20 years due to rapid urbanization and migration. So there would be duplicate entries, and if it's looking at that, why would you see that with so much of suspicion?
Akashdeep Puni respond.
Entirely in order, constitutionally valid.
Sajay please, 10 seconds, I have not interrupted. Now, Sajay that is why I say to BJP spokesperson that if you listen to me, you'll shift from Congress to BJP to Congress. Why I say this? Because I did not talk about Section 21. I talked about Article 21, right to life and liberty. In 2020, Bihar.
But I'm talking about Section 21. Yeah, but I'm talking about. Yeah, but I'm talking about representation. Yeah, you talked about it, but I corrected you and talked about this actually valid because representation of People's Act 1950 is what decides.
No, 1 minute.
No, they're two different things.
Okay.
I know what you said, but you please listen to what I said also. No, it's a very good point that he's making. You are talking about that, but I'm talking about representation of People's Act. And some people like us who have fought elections know about it. So I'm telling you, it's very much part of the mandate of EC to do it.
Yeah,
it is not out of line. It is very much there, constitutionally valid. So do not question it, is what I'm saying. It
No.
challenge
So
it legally.
1 minute.
That's very much part of how it works. And it is the mandate of election commission.
Okay. Now, may I request both of you to please calm down. Calm down. My point is, sir, if something happened 5 decades ago, does it mean it should not happen now? That means it should have been conducted in between. Now, the other thing is, you heard O.P. Rawaji. He said that it can. Correct. So, no. So he's also said that in 2003, similar exercise was undertaken at and similar amount of time, and at that time, technology had not even advanced to the levels that it is today. And there is a constant tracking that is happening. But the other thing is, sir, when you talk about right to life, so one's right to life, does it supersede the right to life? Article 21 applies only to one sect, the other side doesn't. The right to have a proper, robust voter list so that there is an efficient selection of candidates and it is done by the proper voters, does that right also not exist? And the other thing is, sir, if maybe and therefore can be anything, sir. You have a driver's license, but maybe that you have not given your driving license properly, so maybe and therefore you should not be driving your car. Maybe, sir, you do not know, you may have not had food in the morning and maybe you may have acidity, and that is why maybe you should not have that samosa that is being served to you. Therefore, you should not have that samosa that is being served to you. Maybe, sir, that the spice that's been added to that cup of tea by the chai wala, maybe you may be allergic to it, then that's why that hot, strong cup of tea, therefore you should not have it. Sir, maybe and therefore is a classic example for anything and everything to be done or not to be done. That cannot be. Where is the proof? Sir, give me actual proof that it is only Dalits, OBCs or Muslims who have been struck out of the voter list. Not a single Savarn, not a single Christian, not a single Jain or Buddhist has ever been struck off the voter list. Now, that's not fair, Akashdeep Puni. That's a classic leftist maybe and therefore supposition, disposition. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
Yeah, thank you very much, Anand. Good evening to you and my fellow panelists. I've been listening very patiently to a wonderful debate. Please allow me a couple of minutes of uninterrupted time. Two issues here. Number one is very straightforward. This is a deliberate, mala fide attempt by the opposition yet again to undermine India's democratic process, which is undertaken by the Election Commission, an autonomous body mandated by the Constitution. They've done it time and again. It is not me to say this again and again, but this goes far and beyond the free speech that is enshrined in the Constitution. This goes into the realm of defamation. And if the EC has guts, if I was the CE, I would have sued the pants of each of these people, because each of these issues have been rebutted time and time again, starting from EVMs to interference in the electoral process to now this. Now let me come to the nub of the issue. Couple of points out here. This is a routinely mandated statutory exercise that is taken by the Election Commission. Now, you see, the point is you can rebut by opinions, but it doesn't matter. You have to rebut with facts, because that is the only way to quieten these guys. So let me give you just the facts. This is the Lok Sabha debates from 7th March 2003. In here, if Dr. Muni and others have the patience to go through this, they would say that it categorically mentions that in 2002, 20 states underwent the intensive revision. In 2003, 7 states underwent intensive revision. In 2003, in addition to Bihar, this is a routine exercise. Now let me come to the other fact that they never mention. 95% of the Bihar voters have already been given the enumeration forms. Most of this exercise is already complete. There are hundreds of thousands of BLOs and BLAs that are undertaking this exercise. And final point, when you talk of disenfranchising the Muslims and Dalits, is there any shame left out here? Do the opposition parties even know? And this is the way to rebut them. Don't talk about the states that are governed by the BJP or the alliance, NDA alliance. Talk about the states that are non-BJP states, and there you will see not a whimper, not a skirmish, not a squirm. You know why? In 2023, 22 lakh voters in Telangana were deleted from the electoral rolls, including 40% Muslim population worth of Hyderabad. 5 lakh voters were deleted. Did you hear anything about it? In Bengal, 1 lakh voters have been deleted. Did you hear anything about it? In Kerala, 3 lakh voters have been added. Did you hear anything about it? No, you didn't. So there everything is fine, and incidentally, even though 5 lakh voters from Hyderabad were deleted, Owaisi still won. So much for conspiracy. So this will carry on. I can keep on bleating about this time and time again with facts, but unless the EC stands up and sues the pants of these people, because this is undermining the confidence that Indian electorate has in the election process directly. It is not free speech anymore. It is defamation.
Maybe they are mindful of the right to life or right to earnings of certain top lawyers of the Supreme Court, and therefore they are saying, okay, go and approach the benches. So again, using the maybe and therefore Dr. Ranganathan. But Akashdeep Muni, this is the limit. You can't just, this is just unnecessarily narrative spinning. If it is not government bodies who will do it, then you will say, who are these people who are conducting this? Now it is government bodies, oh, they can influence. You're willy-nilly questioning the integrity of anything and everybody, anybody and everybody. That's not fair.
You know, Anandji, what's not fair? It's not fair that when I speak, you interrupt me, and when the both of the other panelists speak, you don't.
Nobody will interrupt you, sir. Go ahead.
Give them free space. I quoted you in 2003 when the people, you know, in Simanchal region, specifically, it is a Muslim-dominated area. When they lost their enfranchisement, did you raise an eyebrows? No. You know, in Gaya and Patna, when Dalit landless laborers, when
5 lakh voters in Hyderabad.
did you find any
okay, let him
causes
speak.
to be
Let him
Bharatiya
speak.
Janata Party? No.
No.
You know, now when this case, if this totally flawless, okay, ये पूरा गलत है, जैसे डॉक्टर साहब ने बोला, ये पूरा गलत है, तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने क्यों टाइम दिया? Why the Supreme Court has given time to the lawyers on July 10th? Why?
But the court has only said because.
But that itself is.
They have given the time, right? They would have वो खारिज कर देते कि ना हम time नहीं देंगे.
Oh, so just cause, okay, your judgeship and milords, because you have given time to hear a petition that was filed by 9 political parties, including one of the top legal luminaries of our country, and they said, and since you have allocated time, that is why, see, you have now given grounds to the opposition to believe that dal mein kuch kala hai, something is wrong, otherwise why will court give time? That's the question being asked.
But tell me, how does that explain? But Anand, by the same logic, how do you explain the Supreme Court ruling on Election Commission that, and also what Maharashtra High Court had just said about the Maharashtra elections? How do you explain that? How do you explain that?
No,
but they've said that all the charges and all the claims made by Congress are completely out of order and unsubstantiated.
Maybe the petitioners made some error in their representation and therefore the verdict did not go in their favor. I'm using the classic maybe and therefore.
I mean, how long will you play this game is a question. You know, I mean, you questioning the Election Commission, you question the EVMs, and time again, Election Commission has also asked for all parties to be present and work it out, but it keeps happening again and again and again. And they benefited, RJD has benefited in 2020 and before that electorally because of the same deletions or additions. Yes, in 2003 there was this whole SIR that was done, but just see, I can just hear it in Akash Mani's voice and words, carefully the usage of Muslims and Dalits. How long will this go on for?
No, but
I mean,
the simple thing is, well, one needs
it's a big affront really to everybody's intelligence. And
since the Milords are hearing this matter,
let it be real.
Since the Milords are hearing this matter, let them just turn around and say, please prove that those who are Muslims, Dalits, backwards, OBCs, etc., only those people who are going to vote for the Mahagathbandhan, their names have been cluttered up. Only their names. There are no people who did not want to vote for the Mahagathbandhan whose names have not been struck off the voter list. There are no people from the upper caste who have not. There are no Christians, no Jains, no Brahmins, no Kshatriyas, nobody. No Bhumiyar, nobody. None of them have lost their names from the voter list. Only Dalits, Mahadalits, OBCs and Muslims. And let the opposition also prove, Dr. Ranganathan, empirically with proof that all these people have voted only for the Mahagathbandhan. They have never voted for the BJP.
No, not only that, look, I have tremendous respect for Dr. Muni, he's a great friend, but hypocrisy is hypocrisy and has to be exposed on 2 points. Number one, it's a straight question to Dr. Muni. In 2023, when lakhs of Muslim voters were deleted from Hyderabad, which is Owaisi's constituency, was that wrong for Owaisi not to have raised a voice? Yes or no? Because you are so concerned about Muslims and Dalits, so asking you, did Kejriwal raise his voice? And number two, as you always consistently take a moral and ethical higher ground compared to all the other parties, accepted. Aam Aadmi Party is not corrupt, every other party is corrupt. Aam Aadmi Party is the paragon of ethical and moral conduct. So I want to ask you.
No, Anand, stop. Anand, I know you have a good sense of humor, but now you're pushing it.
No, this is again one of the maybes and therefores. You have to let it slide, please.
Yes. So now that you also believe in Supreme Court, Dr. Muni, the Supreme Court said that anonymous electoral bonds and taking money through them was wrong, was a scam and should be removed.
Yes.
Now, AAP took money from anonymous electoral bonds. Do you think AAP should have returned that money that it took from anonymous electoral bonds? And if yes, why didn't it? Two simple questions.
No, are we discussing Aam Aadmi Party today? We are discussing the Bihar elections today, right? Why you are...
Well done, Akashdeep.
TMC also
In my head,
TMC also took, Congress
please,
also
let him speak. Let him speak.
Was any of it returned by the same logic?
Okay, let him speak. Let him speak.
But this, I have no... Anchor साहब, आपने रंगनाथन जी को stop नहीं किया.
नहीं आप बोलिए आकाशदीप. मैं तो आपको compliment कर रहा हूँ कि I thought कि आकाशदीप, if he is smart and quick on the counter, he would turn around and say debate बिहार का हो रहा है कि आम आदमी पार्टी का हो रहा है. You said exactly the same. I am complimenting you. But AAP is going to fight in Bihar. वो भी केजरीवाल जी ने बोला है. Yes, please make your point.
See, you raised concerns regarding why I was talking about Muslims and Dalits. Now, let's not do this that कि नहीं एक भी upper caste का वोट कट नहीं होता, सब दलितों का वोट कट. वोट सबका कटेगा. जब ऐसा एक्सरसाइज होगा तो वोट सबका कटेगा. And why I talked about Muslim dominated? Because Simhanchal is Muslim dominated. भाई आपके बोलने से मेरे बोलने से
हैदराबाद की बात क्यों नहीं करी?
हिमाचल is Muslim dominated.
नहीं आप हिमाचल नहीं आकाशदीप मुनि. My point, sir, is why does it smack of appeasement? Your points and the arguments you raise is, are you trying to say that there were no Hindu dominated areas where Hindu के वोट कटे थे?
Yeah.
Why आपको क्यों याद नहीं है? आपको सिर्फ हिमाचल ही क्यों याद है? Why are you thinking only Himachal? That is the narrative to appease A, B polarize. Then name Hindu dominated also areas where Hindu voters vote lists were also cut off. Then at that time you will not say Hindus. At that time you will conveniently say Dalits and OBCs. You will not say Hindu. So again you are playing the brazen appeasement game. All Muslims are bunched together based on their religion, but Hindus are broken down on their caste. Why didn't you say कि शिया के इतने वोट कटे, सुन्नियों के इतने वोट कटे, इस्माइली के इतने वोट कटे? आपने ये नहीं बोला. आपने मुसलमानों के कास्ट नहीं गिनाए, लेकिन हिंदुओं के सबके कास्ट गिनाए. ये भी तो totally appeasement driven narrative.
And Akash Muni, being a Sunni Muslim, let me tell you that Muslim society is totally divided on the basis of caste divisions. I hope you know that. but you never mention that, and that's a huge factor. Anybody who's grown up as an Indian Muslim, and I'm a Sunni Muslim, but you never do that. And is there any reason why you don't do that?
Don't ask question and reply. I just I also said about migrant laborers. There was no caste, no religion in the migrant laborers of Patna and Gaya, जिनके वोट कटे. ये बहुत सारे रिपोर्ट्स में आए थे.
Correct.
अरे भाई क्यों नहीं कटेंगे?
No. So now, अगर आपको मैं एग्जांपल दे दूं, अरे if there are examples of people hailing from Bihar who have more than one voter ID, who go back to Bihar to vote in Bihar, but they are also voting elsewhere wherever they are plying their wares, is that fair to the democratic system?
The unfair system is that the democratic
should they be allowed to vote at multiple places? Should they be allowed to hold two voter IDs? If there are people from Bihar, irrespective of their religious background or their caste or of their social background, I am asking you, should they have two voter IDs? Should they be also applying their vote in Uttar Pradesh or in Delhi while also going back to Bihar to cast their vote there? Is that fair?
Of course not.
No. So if that has to be done, there has to be an intensive revision and there has to be a correction. Now in that, whoever it is, it will happen. Okay, anyway, I've got to wind up. We got to move on. Akashdeep Puni, Dr. Ranganathan and Shazia Almi, do stay on with us because we'll continue the conversation, but we'll shift away from politics and let's move into a certain level of geopolitics, viewers. This is important. The fact is that there is a trade deal in the offing. The fact is that some hard words were said during BRICS. The fact is there is also the sword of Damocles, that is of tariffs, additional tariffs. Because what that man, Donald Trump, may do, nobody knows. Let's shift focus to this delicate trade talks between Bharat and the United States that have gone through weeks of negotiations. Trump has now started signing letters to countries both with whom the US has managed to clinch a deal so far and the ones he has not hammered out a deal yet. He will be intimating them about the tariffs which will take effect from 1st of August. Now, if Bharat is not able to crack a deal by then, it could be looking at a 26% tariff, but there is a caveat there too, because Donald Trump is threatening another additional 10% for all BRICS nations. The eye there is India. Question remains, does that mean 36% taxes for Bharat?
Sending letters out on Monday having to do with the trade deals. Could be 12, maybe 15. Secretary of Commerce right here. And I guess Howard, I would say it could be maybe as many as 15 or so. And they'll be going out on Monday, and some will go out on Tuesday and Wednesday, and and we've made deals also. So we're going to have a combination of letters, and some deals have been made.
But Bharat has a plan B if this deal is not reached. Diversifying markets is one way to try and offset the tariff burden. Now, the government has asked exporters and manufacturers to also explore other emerging and advanced markets, more SEZs or special economic zones to be set up and expanded to boost exports. Now, Bharati producers are finding new markets, especially for toys and fruits. Made in India toys are now being exported to over 150 countries. Fruits are finding new markets in West Asia and the Gulf, with eyes on more markets for India's seafood exports. Listen into what Piyush Goyal had to say.
नेशनल इंटरेस्ट, भारत के हितों को संरक्षण करना, ये मोदी सरकार का पहला ध्येय रहता है, ये हमारी प्राथमिकता रहती है और आप सबको कोई चिंता करने की बात नहीं है। जो भी फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट किसी भी देश के साथ होगा, उसमें कश्मीर की, जम्मू कश्मीर की और पूरे भारत के हर एक प्रांत की, हर एक हिस्से की पूरा संरक्षण करते हुए फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट किए जाएंगे। एक प्रकार से अब भारत पूरी दुनिया को व्यापार और उद्योग के जगत में एक ट्रस्टेड पार्टनर, विश्वसनीय साझेदार के रूप में आज लोग भारत की तरफ देखते हैं। लोगों को विश्वास है कि भारत और भारतवासी ईमानदार व्यापार करते हैं, इसलिए पूरी दुनिया आज भारत के साथ व्यापार बढ़ाना चाहते। दुनिया के सब विकसित देश आज भारत के साथ करार करके अपना दो तरफा व्यापार बढ़ाने के लिए उत्सुक है।
Well, Trump is on Truth Social and he's posting about Brazil, etc. We are just standing by because of sometime around this time, as we are speaking, we should have some intimation of whether there are letters about deals or whether there are letters. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday are days when we're going to talk about deals and tariffs, is what the Trump administration has said. Now, this also comes as Prime Minister Narendra Modi gained solid backing on his stand against terrorism, sending the message that support for terror should not be based on convenience. Now, during the BRICS summit session on peace and security and reform of global governance, PM Modi strongly reiterated Bharat's commitment to peace and brotherhood. He stressed that silent approval or support for terrorism and its backers, whether for personal or political gain, must not be tolerated, urging all nations to act decisively. Was he hinting at that breaking bread with Munir at the White House?
On the session on peace and security, Honorable Prime Minister underlined that terrorism was a grave threat facing humanity. He underlined that the attack, the Pahalgam attack, terror attack, is an onslaught on the entire humanity. In this context, he noted that all the leaders have condemned Pahalgam terrorist attack. He also noted that those funding, promoting and providing safe havens to terrorists must be dealt with in the harshest terms. Session on strengthening multilateralism, economic, financial affairs and artificial intelligence, Honorable Prime Minister expressed that diversity and multipolarity were valued strengths of the BRICS. He added that BRICS could play an important role in shaping a multipolar world.
Now, this begs the question, is India effectively managing its tightrope walk with the United States on matters of terror and trade? And can it effectively flex its muscles on multilateral platforms to achieve its strategic ends? Shazia Almi, National Spokesperson of the BJP, is with us. Anand Ranganathan, Akash Deepmuni is also with us. And we also have P.K. Basuji joining us in a bit, economist. Shazia Almi, deal, no deal, what's the story?
I think the ground has been set, and we heard how Prime Minister spoke about multilateralism, the need for these big multilateral agencies to relook at and serve the interest of all, and of course a stronger global south presence. But having said that, you know, while we make our ground very clear about rules-based economic order and a global trade, and also when you look at President Trump and this extra levy of 10% that you're looking at on BRICS partner, it is in that sense a classic, protectionist move. But India has said that, unilateral action, if there is going to be any, which will be a dangerous precedent. Yes, it will impact us, but India has always said and believed in engagement, not escalation. So bilateral dialogue remains our first choice, and we will look at that. And India will also look at all of WTO remedies. So, whether it's formal dispute settlement and to defend our exporters and exports and other ways. So, our resolve within BRICS is to about deepening ties and looking at enhancing the new development. So, it remains that. So, I feel that I think already India has remained a very strong driving force in talking about revamping, rehauling the various multilateral institutes and agencies, and has asserted that. In light of that, very now 7th abhi aane wala hai thodi der mein, the letters to the tweets we've been informed.
Shazadi, what the opposition is saying,
the extra 10%
opposition has sent your way some criticism. I'm just saying it a little poetically. कि ना चीन से बनी ना अमेरिका को बुझा पाए, डिफेंस तो डूब गया, अब ट्रेड भी डूबा है. That's the criticism coming in the BJP and the government's way.
Yeah, but I mean, people who know better, who know what's happening in the world, know what President Trump has been saying and doing and how the entire world is impacted. This will not cut any ice, right? Because there are agencies in place and there are various dynamics in place. So people know better. And we know, and we just heard not just Piyush Goyal, but also Mr. Agarwal, who was gone there and who was negotiating on that yes, we will engage on this, and there is a 10% extra levy that he's talking about on all the BRICS nations. So there is a lot here which is at which is at stake, and not just for India.
Now, whether
India
South
is
Africa and
very
Brazil
well
can stomach
poised
that, we'll have to see.
deal with it.
But Russia and China have already been there, and he's already in advanced conversations of a trade deal with China more than with Bharat is. PK Basuji?
True.
Why that smile on your face?
Well, I think, we are dealing with a somewhat mercurial American president, and exactly what he wants to do with the BRICS is not yet known. But it does appear that India and the US have come to some sort of interim agreement, and that will be a positive, most likely. Basically, there are three options. We either go with a 10% tariff, a 20% tariff on everything, or a 26% tariff, which is the original threat from April. Now, in addition, unfortunately, the US has imposed tariffs on steel. It has imposed tariffs on autos and auto components. So it is yet to be seen whether the bilateral trade agreement will reduce some of those, because those are imposed on all autos and auto components as well as steel. So, whether India will gain an exemption as a result of the bilateral trade agreement is to be determined. I think we'll find out once that so-called letter from President Trump comes out.
But somewhere in more than BRICS, it's the GM crops, it's agriculture and dairy. It's those sectors where America has been wanting into the Indian markets, and Bharat's been resisting that. Akashdeep Muni?
Well, on dairy.
Okay, PK Basu and then Akashdeep Muni. Ji. Please complete.
On dairy, I think we are highly competitive. Having lived outside India for a long time, the one thing that struck me when I came back to India was how inexpensive it was to buy all dairy products from Amul and Mother Dairy in Delhi, and from wherever you buy them elsewhere in the country. It's much cheaper than the rest of the world. So I think we're very competitive in dairy. But nonetheless, obviously, it's a sensitive sector. I think we should be brave and go ahead and open up dairy, because I think our dairy products are world class. They're highly competitive. But that's my own opinion, based on having lived in many parts of the world, including the United States, Southeast Asia. I think our dairy products are extremely competitive, and we shouldn't be fearful of opening that sector up.
But also with GM crops. Akashdeep Muni, that's where the farmer-sensitive issue is with GM crops, where be it soybean, be it corn, there is already BT cotton. But these are 2-3 other crops which America is pressing India to open up its market and import.
Brinjal.
Yeah, and brinjal.
Definitely, Anandji, but in my opinion, the way this government is going, it's not showing that it is a Vishwaguru, but is just a follower of Trump administration. Let me prove my point to you. India publicly backed away from supporting a BRICS currency or dollar alternative mechanisms due to US pressure. Now, India's dependence on the US market has increased under this administration, leaving the economy vulnerable to Trump-era tariffs. Like the trade deficit before 2014 was $42 billion per month. Now it has gone to $90 billion per month with the US. Now, India reduced oil imports from Russia and Gulf nation by over 70% and ramped up US oil imports by 120% just to appease US. India once led G77 and NAM voices, but today it is perceived as a junior partner in the West. Now, these all things seems unfavorable for India diplomatically and also by trade. For example, it accepted US data localization demands in the digital economy in the partnership, in demands in the digital economy partnership, and did not push back in US pharma lobby at WTO TRIPS waiver negotiation during COVID-19. These all sum up that we are just sooner or later becoming an ally of US rather than...
No, that is not true. I would like to disagree with you. No, I think India's tariff notifications have been far more assertive and have been far more WTO compliant. India has been very clear, and it has leveraged its platform really well and has spearheaded and talked about plurilateral and multilateral initiatives. Even when you look at institutional reform, India has been pushing for it. It has never done so earlier. But in the last few years, we've seen whether it's e-commerce duties on moratorium, India has been right there. And also when it comes to defending different WTO cases, we've been doing much better than ever before. And then we look at US cotton subsidies and the solar tariffs. And we have had very favorable rulings in our favor, and which has saved a lot of dollars for our exporters, really. So I don't think you're very, very fair. And even when it comes to a right to stock holding for food security, we've done a far better job in a very assertive manner, and have made our presence felt. So I think our ministries, our commerce and industry have done a great job, and our negotiations within the WTO have been very, very
we've negotiated hard.
And we are not yielding ground, but we are do believe in it.
Yeah, but the other thing is that we are a growing nation. Two big hegemonies, or in terms of those who dominate trade, are America and China. Now, Anand Ranganathan is there with us, and he cribs that our import bill from China is only going up. You are saying our import bill from America is only going up. But the thing is, at least we have got the money to consume from both these nations. It's happening. And obviously, in a nation like this, and in a globe which is connected, we can't be isolation unless we make everything for ourselves and we consume everything ourselves. We have not got to a stage, and that's not going to be the case ever. But Dr. Ranganathan, your thoughts before we take this further. Ji.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I speak as a layman, and the problem with that is that being a scientist, I try and bring as much scientific logic into my arguments as possible. पर साइंटिस्ट की कोई सुनता नहीं, इतने इकोनॉमिस्ट बैठे हुए हैं, बट बी दैट एज इट मे.
ट्रम्प में आप लॉजिक बढ़ा रहे हो, ये बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है, द बिगेस्ट एक्सपेरिमेंट. गो अहेड प्लीज. जी.
Look, Anand, but seriously, I remain an advocate for free trade and globalization. But here is the thing, in talking of the spirit of competition and free trade, one cannot allow unfair trade practices and dumping of goods. So as far as the problem of unfair trade practice is concerned, I think we are on the right track. We have been under the Modi era. I think Mr. Modi did great to pull out of, you remember, RCEP, which was effectively a free trade agreement with China. Yeah. We would have been destroyed because China is a known currency manipulator that props up its companies underhand, indulging in unfair trade practices. Therefore, in the long run, tariffs are harmful, I believe, and counterproductive, but they are an effective measure to check unfair trade practice. Besides, the extent of tariffs is decided by the WTO, erstwhile the GATT, and nations come to a mutually agreed upon rates. The ultimate goal, and I speak as a scientist out here, is a level and free playing field that encourages competition, respects and rewards intellectual property, and gives consumer a choice at a reasonable cost. High tariffs don't do any of these three things. Finally, all things being equal, imposing tariffs by a developing country on identical goods being imported from a developed country is superfluous in my opinion, because that product of the same quality and standard is being made in the developed world by someone earning 10 times the wages. And so when that product is sold in the developing world, its cost would naturally be higher and consumers would naturally choose the domestic product. A simple pencil of identical quality made in America will sell at a much higher price than its Indian equivalent in India, because the American who made it is given much higher wages. Problem comes when Americans decide they want cheaper pencils and start choosing pencils made in developing country, or their American pencil manufacturer begins getting its pencils made in a developing country to avoid paying high wages. Ultimately, it is about graduating to higher quality, more tech, more IP demanding jobs. For example, free markets and free trade is the best arbiter. Did you know that Japan does not impose any tariffs on American cars? Because Japanese don't want to buy American cars, as they are not as good as non-American cars. In fact, it is America that imposes tariffs on Japanese car makers, and yet Japanese car makers have roughly the same market share as American car makers in America. Look, let us not reinvent the wheel out here. Protectionism is bad, period. Darwin said so, and Darwin is always right.
Yeah, that's because you're a Darwinian atheist, a confirmed one at that.
Darwin is always right.
You talk about survival of the fittest, but you also have to see that it is 1.4 billion people, 20 to 22% of the world's population on 4% of the land mass. And a nation that's growing, you're pitting it against a nation. So then it's an unfair fight in that case itself, Dr. Ranganathan. Scientifically, it's an unfair fight. But, PK Basu? Yes, yes, Shazal.
You do the best you can, right? Yeah, I think one is also scouting and this whole idea of being self-reliant. So I think a lot has happened, and when we diversify our trade ties and we look at other markets too, and we look at other areas, So India has been making its presence felt, and you see, if you see ASEAN and other free trade agreements that we've had. So instead of the opposition making this yet another anti-Modi bashing ploy, see, instead of it becoming about that, let us remember that this is for all India and Indians. This cannot, when we're looking at what Trump is doing and this 10% extra levy and all the tariff talk, which is like, as you said, democracy's sword, it impacts all of us. I don't see any rationale for opposition parties in India to bash up BJP with this, because we're in it together, and I think that's not a very
but they don't control the policy making. They don't control the way who you trade with and where you trade with. The opposition's job is to be the conscience keeper and ask you, where are you going? PK Basuji, one of the things, as a layman, if I may ask you, should we not reduce our dependence on America and China in terms of our import dependency on them? And that can happen only if we try and bring a balance in trade, or we like... Yes, you're on mute, sir.
Well, in terms of export markets, for almost everybody, the largest market is the United States. And certainly that's the case for us. It is the case for China as well. So we can try to diversify, but it'll take time. So it's best to come to some sort of accommodation with the United States, because it is an extremely large market. It's a dynamic, continuingly fast-growing market. And with all their huge fiscal stimulus that they are continuing to provide, the economy is going to continue to grow. So imports will continue to be strong for the US, which means that it is a market worth keeping on side. With regard to China, of course, we have to diversify away from our import dependence on China. That is a very significant problem. But again, that's a problem that most of the world is facing. We have done somewhat better. I think we have the ability to produce many things that only China produces. So, for instance, if you look at steel, aluminium, we are the second biggest producer in the world. If you look at cars, we're the fourth largest producer in the world. Textiles and garments, we're the fourth largest exporter in the world. So, across a broad spectrum of manufactured products, we are highly competitive. I don't think we need to fear anything with regard to a trade agreement. The fact that they may be forcing us to open our market to GM's seeds, for instance, I don't think that should be a deal breaker, because it is still up to our farmers to decide whether they want those types of products or those types of seeds, or will they continue with traditional products. So I think those are minor issues. The real issue is that we need to ensure that we get a lower tariff in the US than our key competitors. If we are able to get down to the 10% tariff level, that is the baseline that the US is now imposing, then I think we are going to be very, very competitive in textiles, garments, shoes, toys, and we're going to hugely gain market share. The point I make is that if we gain 1/3 of China's market share in labor-intensive manufacturing exports, our exports will triple. So that is the nature of the opportunity. We should seize it.
Yeah, we should seize it, but we should also be quick on the counter in terms of how to spin the narrative. The government has always been found wanting in how to spin the narrative in such a way that the opposition doesn't turn it on its head or somebody else doesn't. So that's where it happens. I have run out of time. So Dr. Ranganathan, we'll let you park your opinion and your point, because I really don't have time. Thank you so much. Thank you to all our panelists. Thank you very much. Winding up this edition of Hard Facts with that note. Stay with us. Vantage follows after the break. Namaste.
Dangerously. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Let's begin with our top focus story now. This is a CNN News 18 mega exclusive. This is on the rift between Pakistan's political class and terror groups, with the Pakistani army now seemingly supporting the former Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. Now, why are we saying that? This is as per top intelligence sources that have suggested to CNN News 18 that Bilawal's recent stance on extraditing Designated terrorists like Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar to India suggests a consensus within Pakistan's political leadership. Sources have also suggested that the political class, including Bilawal's Pakistan People's Party, is striving for international legitimacy, particularly in compliance with the FATF mandates. And sources are also indicative of the fact that Bilawal has highlighted the dismantling of over 900 terror groups and institutions and asset seizures, and also arrests as evidence of Pakistan's changing stance. Now, despite Pakistan's efforts, sources are also revealing that the groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed have historically served as tools for plausible deniability in Kashmir operations. So big development there that is coming in from Pakistan, where there seems to be a great divide when it is about the consensus on whether to support terror infrastructure, terror groups, and what has been the recent stance of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari.
इंटरनेशनल न्यूज़ चैनल को इंटरव्यू देते हुए बिलावल ने जो बातें की, भारतीय सहाफ़ी के सवालात के जो जवाबात दिए, हकीकत में वो जवाब बनते नहीं थे, जिससे हम सब की पूरी पाकिस्तानी कौम की दिल आज़ारी हुई है। लेकिन आज हमारे सियासतदान उनके मुंह में ज़ुबान दुश्मनों की हो और वो किसी भी पाकिस्तानी को दुश्मन के यानी हिंदुस्तान के हवाले करने की ऑफर्स करते फिरें, चे जाए कि पाकिस्तान की एक मोतबर शख्सियत मेरे वालिद मोहतरम हाफिज़ मोहम्मद सईद हफिज़हुल्लाह के बारे में ये अंदाज और ये बातें इख्तियार की जाएं।
Let me take this across to our colleague Anand Narsimhan, who is joining us live from the CNN News 18 newsroom. Anand, we were just playing out that reaction of Hafiz Saeed's son. He is, of course, dissing this entire stance by Bilawal Bhutto, but Zardari's stance has found a lot of support in Pakistan. How does one dissect this dynamics, particularly with the power play when it is to do with the Pakistan army?
Good afternoon, Grihan. Good afternoon to our viewers. How firmly are the army, the political establishment and the terror networks entwined with each other in Pakistan is evident from the fact that Hafiz Saeed's son, a proscribed terrorist, and his organization's de facto leader now, that's also a proscribed terrorist organization, Lashkar-e-Taiba's de facto leader, Talha Saeed, Hafiz Saeed's son, sits there and takes Bilawal's name as in first name, talks to him as if he is some ordinary person on whom he can put a target and he can take him out. He is Bilawal Bhutto, the former foreign minister of Pakistan. He comes from the entire Bhutto family, and this is how these terror tanzeems consider Pakistani politicians. And look at the tone that's adopted. And he's sitting there and overtly trying to threaten Bilawal Bhutto for taking Hafiz Saeed's name and saying that if there are nations that want their extradition for terror acts of terror, then we will be amenable to it. The crux of this is that there is clearly friction now between the polity, the army, and also the terror tanzeems. Some of these terror tanzeems now are beyond their use date and beyond their sell-by date, and perhaps the Pakistani military establishment wants the neon figureheads to be seen as acting upon these figureheads and these big terror tanzeems because of the Financial Action Task Force, which has put some very stringent conditions on it for the year 2025. Nearly 900 plus such institutions need to be dismantled, and they are operating within Pakistan and also in the neighborhood region in Afghanistan, where they seem to be regrouping. So Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is clearly trying to endear himself to the West, trying to show himself as the educated, sane option, and also someone who can draw lineage from the past Prime Minister and also the past President, and also and say that I come from the Bhutto Zardari lineage. He's also trying to talk to his Karachi constituency and a lot of the urban elite who are sick of this jihadi tanzeems and this jihadi operating network. But interesting is that the Pak military under Field Marshal Asim Munir